Have you ever found mold in your home? That sinking feeling. It's just so frustrating, right? And it almost always kicks off this really stressful conversation about who or what is to blame. Well, in this explainer, we are going to get to the bottom of that question once and for all.
And yeah, this is usually where it starts, what I like to call the mold blame game. On one side, you have the person saying, look, the building's got a problem. There's a leak. It's damp. It's not my fault. And on the other side, the finger points right back. Well, they're not opening windows. They're creating too much steam. It gets personal, and it gets personal fast. And you know what? It stops anyone from actually finding a real solution.
Exactly. What if all this finger pointing is just wrong? What if it's based on a total misunderstanding of how moisture and buildings are supposed to work together? Let's try to reframe this whole conversation.
Okay, so let's dive right in with our first big idea, and this might sound a little weird, but moisture is not the enemy. In fact, it's a completely normal, totally unavoidable part of just living in a home.
I mean, just think about your average day. We're putting moisture into the air constantly. When we're cooking dinner, taking a hot shower, washing our clothes. Heck, we are releasing water vapor with every single breath we take. These aren't extreme activities. This is just life.
And that leads us to a really simple, logical conclusion. If all those perfectly normal things were the only cause of mold, then literally every single house with people in it would be covered in the stuff. But they're not. So something else has to be going on here. The story is way bigger than just our daily habits.
And to understand that bigger story, we need a better framework. So let's forget about blame for a second and instead think in terms of load versus capacity. It sounds a bit technical, but I promise it's a super simple way to make this whole complex issue suddenly click into place.
So first up, we've got the moisture load. This is all that water vapor we were just talking about, from the cooking, the showering, the breathing. For our little analogy, just picture this as the water you're pouring into a bucket. It's the total amount of moisture being added to the room.
And on the other side of the coin, you've got building capacity. Now, this is the building's ability to actually handle that moisture, to vent it outside, to keep surfaces warm so condensation doesn't form. In our analogy, this is simply the size of the bucket itself, right? How much water can it hold before it starts to overflow?
And this slide, right here, this is where it all comes together beautifully. Let's imagine the exact same family with the exact same lifestyle. That's our moisture load, that first bar. Now let's put them in two different homes. In a resilient home, the building capacity is huge, plenty of room to handle all that moisture. The bucket is big enough, no problem. But you take that same family, same lifestyle, and put them in a vulnerable home with low capacity, now that same moisture load overwhelms the building's ability to cope. The bucket overflows. And that overflow, well, that's your mold.
Let's make this super real. Scenario A. We've got a family in a high-performance home. They're cooking dinner, they're taking hot showers, they're doing laundry, all the normal stuff. And the outcome? Nothing. No mold, the building can handle it.
Okay, now look at scenario B. This is the exact same family with the exact same lifestyle. They're cooking, showering, doing their laundry. But this time, they're in a less resilient, low-performance home. And the outcome? You guessed it, mold growth. The people didn't change, the building did.
So you see, the crucial point here is that mold isn't just about the people, and it isn't just about the building. It's about the interaction between the two. It happens when that moisture load becomes greater than the building's capacity to deal with it.
And once you get that, it totally changes how you approach the problem. It moves us away from this useless blame game and toward a much more balanced, much more productive idea of shared responsibility.
This table really breaks it down. Sure, occupants can influence the moisture load. Blocking a vent or running 5 humidifiers might tip the scales, but the building itself has built-in limitations that define its capacity. Things like bad insulation or poor ventilation. You just can't understand the problem if you're only looking at one side of this chart.
So how do we use this to actually find real solutions? Well, it all starts by asking better questions. Questions that shift our focus away from just behavior and onto the building's actual performance.
This is basically the roadmap. First, you ask, is the moisture being generated here normal for a family? If the answer is yes, you move on. Step 2, does the building have what it needs to cope, like working fans or proper vents? Then you go deeper. Is this a one-off problem in one corner, or is something wrong with the whole building's design? And finally, a really powerful one, are other people in similar apartments having the same issue? See? This path gets you to the root cause, not just a quick paint over.
So why does this matter so much? Because when you look at it this way, you create fairness.
You find solutions that actually work for the long haul because you're targeting the real cause. You stop that frustrating cycle of the mold just coming back again and again. And maybe most importantly, you rebuild trust because you've replaced accusation with genuine understanding.
So if you take just one thing away from all this, let it be this thought right here. Mold is not about blame. It's a signal. It's the physical proof of an imbalance, an interaction where the moisture load has simply overwhelmed the building's capacity. And understanding that, well, that's the first real step to fixing it for good.